Us right now from the Select USA Investment Summit just outside Washington is Kentucky Republican Governor Matt Bevin. And Governor, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome. Great to be with you.
We are talking about trade wars constantly at this point, and these ratcheting up of tariffs and other threats. What does that mean to your state?
You know, certainly to any state, including Kentucky, there is the potential for disruption in the marketplace, but this is the nature of business. It just is. I mean, no matter what decision is made, there's going to be somebody who feels that they've won something and others who feel that they've potentially lost something. And in any negotiation, which is what trade discussions ultimately are, there's going to be some disequilibrium for a period of time. So for Kentucky specifically, this recommendation by the EU to put a tariff of 25% on bourbon, there's two reasons why people put tariffs on historically. They put tariffs on because they want to defend an industry or capability within their country, or because they want to raise money. And this is just a money grab by the EU because they don't even have a bourbon industry. So it's basically a money grab on a product. We have about an $8.5 billion business in bourbon, and about $180 million of the $8.5 billion goes to Europe. Europeans are still going to drink more bourbon this year than they did last year. They're just going to pay more for it because their government's going to take some of it.
Governor, I'd argue that these are actually politically motivated. It's a response to what they've seen happening from the United States. And a state like Kentucky has been targeted because the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, hails from your state. And one of the things that we've seen with a lot of these tariffs is they really are targeting Republican bases.
There may be some element of truth to that, but the president is correct. I'm not advocating that we get into a trade war. I'm really not. I'm a free trade advocate. At the same time, we have about a $12 to $15 billion deficit every month with Europe in this specific case who we're talking about. $12 to $15 billion a month. A trade war of the type you're describing, if it were to happen, Europe loses. So does pretty much every other partner with whom we trade, with rare exception. So to that end, ultimately, the consumers, not just in this country, but in the workers, not just in this country, but in the very countries that are threatening these retaliations, they too lose. And so ultimately, if we have deficits, it is we who lose less than they do, so they don't want this. This is a game of posturing. It comes at expense. It does affect the markets, as you've noted. They will probably get hammered today. The market and business does not, capital doesn't like uncertainty. They want some element of certainty, including investors that I'm talking to here at the Select USA conference.
Governor, let's talk about another issue in your state, and that is the pension reform law that you'd been supporting. It made its way through the government there, but now a judge has struck it down as unconstitutional. Let's talk a little bit about what happened. This was something that would rein in some of the benefits that had been promised to state workers. What happened? How urgent is this? It's an issue facing a lot of states.
First, I want to clarify, it doesn't rein in anything for state workers, and that's the one sad reality of it, is that it was a fairly innocuous bill. This judge who struck it down is frankly a terrible judge. He's not a very competent attorney, for that matter, and he's gotten elected because that's how you get into this position, because he's a liberal Democrat representing a liberal district. And so, unfortunately, he makes decisions based on politics. This will ultimately, his decision will be overruled. This will stand because it doesn't do much. It simply makes changes for people who are not even employees yet, but might be at some point in the future. This is a $4 to $5 trillion problem in America, the unfunded public pensions. And if we don't address it, in Kentucky's as bad as anywhere. We have about 60 to 80 billion in unfunded liability. Per capita, it is the largest of any state in America. What we've simply done is try to stop future bleeding. We haven't even begun to address how we're going to fix the current wound of underfunded status. This is a problem for Kentucky, every other state that's watching this, and the federal government as a whole. And if we don't fix it, it is going to be catastrophic for the United States.
My understanding was that the judge didn't rule on any of the changes to benefits portion of it, that this was a ruling on how it went through the houses of the State House, that he thought that it wasn't given the 3 readings that I guess are constitutionally required in your state. Can you just change it by going back, having it read 3 times, and then pass it through again?
We'll see. I mean, the reality is if we applied that same, this is the first time ever in history that somebody has felt that that was an issue, because if so many laws that have been passed in our House and in others and at the federal government would have the same problem. This strikes down so many laws, if it's allowed to stand, that have been passed in recent years, that it would be ridiculous to actually apply. It's why he'll lose, but he doesn't care about the actual merits of the case. The fact that this does or doesn't violate a particular contract, of course he didn't rule on that because he had no basis or standing to do so. I mean, he had no ability to strike that down. This is a politically motivated move because we're in an election year. He's a former Democrat operative and cabinet secretary in a previous administration in our state. So sadly, people play games, but they're doing it with people's lives and with the financial security of Kentucky.
No, I understand that this might be something that gets overturned by a higher court, but I just wonder, I mean, is this such a contentious bill that it couldn't go through and be read 3 times through? I guess it passed in 6 hours. It sounds a little like Obamacare.
I would be lying
when it went through.
I don't know enough about what games people might want to play in response to this. I think it would be better to actually contest it, because then you would, if you use the same logic, you'd have to go back and read bill after bill that have been passed in recent years to try to do the same thing. And we can't allow one renegade judge to overturn the way the process works politically because he has some political motivation.
Understood. Governor Bevin, you are there today because obviously you're looking for more investment in your state, trying to get out the good word about what's happening in Kentucky. What are you telling people there?
We're talking about the incredible opportunities there are in North America, in the United States, and in Kentucky specifically for getting return on investment. We are talking to people who have capital. Capital goes where it's welcome. Capital goes where people want it, and this is something we're making clear. Kentucky is the logistical hub of America, with UPS, DHL, and now Amazon building their world and North American shipping hubs in Kentucky. The ability to move goods to market, the workforce that is ready and available, the monies that we are spending on training that workforce, the cost of living, the low cost of energy, lowest on the East Coast, eastern half of the U.S., the lowest electricity rates. These things matter to potential investors. And so for the last day plus and for the next day, I'm going to be speaking to the billions of dollars of potential investors that are looking for a home somewhere in North America and making the case for Kentucky.
Governor Bevin, thank you for your